Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Warren, and Warren was addicted to his PlayStation, his PS5. He got it for Christmas one year, and he plays night and day. His parents have tried to enforce screen time rules. They've done their best, but he always finds a way. And he's very persistent. He tends to be kind of an argumentative kid, and he makes good arguments. And he's always negotiating new ways with his parents to get more screen time, whether it's chores around the house or extra reading time. He's bartered his way into tons of screen time. And so what he does is he has one game on the PS5 that he is particularly obsessed with, and it is MLB The Show, the baseball game. And he has gotten so proficient in it. He's played online against people from all over the world, and he has won sort of different tournaments here and there. Well, one day, Warren was playing, and he had been sitting for a good 3 hours. He had not moved, and he needed to take a bathroom break. And he got up, and his legs, of course, were completely asleep. It was pins and needles just shooting from his toes to his hips. I mean, he could even feel it in his brain. That's how long he had been sitting for. And so he shook it out. He went to the bathroom, and when he came back, there was a notification on his screen that was advertising a MLB The Show tournament, a worldwide tournament. And the winner of that tournament was going to get a chance to play baseball for real in the Little League World Series.
Warren's dream was always to play in real life, but Warren felt he was not equipped to play with the bigger, older kids. That's why he loved playing the video game. And so he thought, maybe this is my chance to actually get to play in real life. But the problem is that Warren, well, not a problem. He felt very confident that he could beat anyone in the world online. But how was he going to prepare for playing in real life if he spent so much time online? So Warren needed to figure out a way to still play for hours and hours in front of his TV, but also not let his muscles atrophy to where he's not ready to actually play the real game. Warren was a very smart person, and he knew that he needed to figure out a way to where he could spend all this time in front of the screen playing the video game MLB Show Live, but then also figure out how he could learn to play baseball in real life so that his muscles didn't atrophy and he could actually compete in the tournament. So Warren, as smart as he was, decided maybe I need to spend less time in front of the screen because I can beat anyone in the world online. But how am I going to learn to play in real life? So Warren goes outside for the first time in a long time during the day. And he sees the grass and he sees the sun, and it's so bright that he runs back inside and slams the door. He was breathing hard, and he felt he was about to have a panic attack because it just seemed like such a big world outside, and he felt so safe and comfortable right there on the couch. So he sat down and went online for another 3 hours, got his confidence back up, beat everyone online, and said, okay, I'm going to register for the tournament.
So he did. He registered, but he still had the physical issues that he had to get through because, again, he was super proficient online, but he hadn't really done anything athletic in quite some time. He's what we call a couch potato. So one day at school, he went to his best friend, Daniel, and Daniel was the best athlete in the entire grade. And he said, Daniel, I need you to help me train for this baseball tournament. And Daniel looked at him. He's like, what do you mean a baseball? He's like, you're a pasty gamer who rarely gets outside. What are you talking about? A baseball tournament. When did you start playing baseball? He said, well, here's the thing. I haven't yet, but they're doing this contest with MLB The Show, and the winner of this worldwide contest, which I'm very confident I will take first place because it's literally the thing I'm the best at in life. The winner gets a chance to play in the Little League World Series. These are 11-year-old kids, and, some of the kids in the Little League World Series are going to be, 12 and 13. And Warren was not an athletic kid, and he was kind of small. And Daniel kind of laughed at him, and he said, well, we've got a long way to go here then. I want you to get to school tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. because we're going to begin training.
And Warren said, okay, Daniel, I'll be there at 5 a.m. Warren was so excited. He went home and he sat on the couch and he turned on the PS5 and he played and he played and he played. And next thing you know, he fell asleep on the couch and his alarm was going off. It's at 6 a.m. Warren sprung up. Oh no, I played all night. I missed my opportunity. So he ran out the house. He got on the school bus, and his normal time, which is, I guess kids get to school around 7, got there at 7 and went out to the baseball field. Daniel wasn't around. He went to his class, looked for Daniel. Daniel wasn't there. He went to lunch, didn't see Daniel. Eventually he ran into Daniel in the hallway and he was like, Daniel, I'm so sorry, man. And Daniel said, Warren, I go to bed early, man. I wake up early, man. I take this so seriously. Don't waste my time, Warren. I was here for you. If you want me to be here, I need you to take this seriously. And then Warren said, okay, I hear you. I promise you, I will be here tomorrow at 5 a.m. Give me one more chance. Daniel said, okay, it's going to be a lot of hard work. I need you to get serious. And Warren said, I promise. That night when Warren went home, he only ate protein. He ate his dinner on time. He did his chores. But then the couch was calling him. He actually heard the couch calling him. It said, Warren, sit on me. You know you want to play. And then the PS5 came to life and said, Warren, play. It's time to go online. But Warren, he put the pillow over his head and said, no, I need to go to bed. Couchy, I need to go to bed. PS5E. That was their names, PS5E and Couchy. And they said, Warren, come on, just one game. And Warren, in that moment,
got up and he started walking to the couch and the PS5. And then he stopped suddenly and he could hear Daniel's voice in his head. It said, I need you to take this seriously. And he sighed. And he said, I know, Daniel. Even though Daniel wasn't there, it was just the voice of Daniel inside of his head. But in that moment, instead of picking up his controller, he started doing jumping jacks. He started doing burpees. He had never done burpees in his life. He didn't even know what they were. He was a young boy possessed by the drive to be an exceptional athlete. He was doing all sorts of crazy calisthenics, tumbling through the playroom. It was like a spark had been ignited within him, and he broke a sweat. He hadn't sweat in 7 years. There was one particular hot day where the AC went out and he got worked up while he was gaming and he broke a sweat then, but he hadn't really earned a sweat. And it felt so good. It felt so good to just earn that sweat. So eventually he tuckered himself out and he just passed out on the floor. Well, he heard some early morning birds chirping around 4:30 a.m. He got up, he shot up, he grabbed a protein bar and a banana, shoved it in his face, washed it down with some water, some coconut water for electrolytes, because I think there are electrolytes in coconut water. It's good for hydration, good source of potassium in the banana, all things that an athlete needs. And he ran out the door and he hopped on his scooter. He didn't have a bike. He had a scooter. He was a scooter guy. He wasn't a bike guy. So he hopped on his scooter. He got to school. And there was Daniel. And Daniel was like in full baseball garb, cleats, bat, glove, the pants. He even had eye blacks on underneath. And Warren was like, whoa, it's like 5 a.m. I mean, do you really? He's like, yeah, it's part of the thing. Just, you got to work with me here. He's like, you're going to start your training. He's like, all right, give me a bat. I'm ready to hit some balls. And he goes, no. You gotta crawl before you walk. We're going to do wind sprints followed by suicides. Warren was like, oh my God, Daniel, I'm so exhausted. I actually, believe it or not, I was inspired by what you said. And I did a little bit of a workout last night instead of playing. And so I think I'm pretty good. I think we can just like get right into, hitting some home runs and throwing some sliders and, whatever it is that you guys do IRL, in real life, right? That's what we say. So anyway, let's get right to it. And Daniel kind of laughed and he's like, yeah, no, that's not how this works. So go, run. So Warren took off running and he made it about halfway around the track and he just collapsed. He was exhausted. So Daniel came over to him and he said, all right, Warren, I really don't think this is for you. I mean, you can't even make it halfway around the track. And there are some people in life who are destined to sit on a couch and play the games that other people make. And then there are some people that are destined to just be awesome athletes. And that's what I am. And maybe you're just not like me. So good luck. And I hope it works out. But I don't think I'm the guy to train you. So Warren went home that day and he was devastated. And he was about to sit back on the couch and play the PS4 when
he got an alert on his phone about the tournament, the online tournament, that said the biggest challenger of the online championship is Daniel. That was his name, Daniel. And Warren was like, Daniel, that's my best friend. That's why he doesn't want to train me. He's trying to sabotage me. And Warren saw it all so clearly. And he believed in himself. And he said, I need some extra help. And so he goes to his parents. He knocks on their door and wakes them up and says, I know I've tricked you into letting me spend all this time in the PS5. I know I told you that it was good for hand-eye coordination. I know I told you that it would teach me all these skills. I know I told you this and that, and I tricked you, and I made you believe, and you guys gave in all the time. And I just want to say that I'm sorry. And I know you've been trying to tell me to go out and play in the real world, but I was scared of the real world. I'm scared of Daniel. I'm just scared, and I need your help. And his parents had never seen Warren like this. They had never seen this vulnerable side of Warren. And little did Warren know that both his parents almost made it to the major leagues. And they had been waiting for this moment. They themselves had forgotten about their love for the game of baseball because they never thought that they could pour this love into their child, and they never could relate to the video game. So they put together a regimen to train young Warren in real life. Warren did jumping jacks that night with his dad. Warren did backflips with his mom. Warren ran out and got the paper and ran back in and ran out and got everyone's paper and delivered it all over the neighborhood. Warren got on his scooter and was able to lift it above his head after many tries. Warren was starting to get physically, maybe not in the best shape, but he was starting to feel a bit confident about his abilities. And his parents sat him down and said, Warren, it doesn't even matter if you win in the little league, major league thing that you'll get if you win the online tournament, just as long as you play and give it your best. So we want you to just have fun. And when Warren heard that, he stopped worrying so much. And he said, you know what? I might not have all the answers right now, but I think I have a new outlook on where I want to go and how I can balance my life and the things that I'm missing when I just sit on the couch and play video games all day. And this time when he opened the door and saw the bright sunlight and he saw the grass and it kind of tickled his allergies a bit, he said, you know what? This is part of it. I can find the balance. So he went to school. He saw Daniel. He said, I know you've been trying to sabotage me. And Daniel was like, whoa, Warren, come on now. I mean, what you talking about? He said, it's okay. I know you're excited about it too. And hey, Daniel, if you want to, have some online tips, I can give you some online tips and help you out. And Daniel had never experienced this type of kindness. He was such a competitive athlete. It was all about him. Even though he was on a team, he always made the team about himself because he was a superior athlete. He had never experienced competition give him kindness. And Daniel went down on his knees and started crying. And he was like, you're too kind, Warren. You're too good for this world. And Warren said, no, Daniel, we're all learning.
And then it came time for the online tournament. And Daniel was home in his house playing. Warren was home at his house playing. And the two of them, you could see, if this was a movie, it'd be a quick montage of them advancing through the different rounds. And there'd be some upbeat music at this time. And sure enough, Daniel and Warren were the two finalists at the end of the tournament. It was the day before the finals, and they were at school. And they now had this new bond because Daniel had seen the kindness in Warren, which softened his hard, icy shell a bit. He thawed a bit that day when Warren showed him kindness. And the two decided that they were going to play each other in the same room. And they were, no matter what happened, they would walk away as friends. Well, Warren brought all of his stuff over to Daniel's house because Daniel's parents had a much bigger place and faster Wi-Fi. It made a lot more sense. So they were over there. The tournament was starting. Some friends came over too to watch. I mean, it was kind of an event. It was a spectacle. PS5, Sony had even sent like a camera crew, right? Because they were going to make TikToks and YouTube shorts and Instagram reels out of this. This was great for social media. And the boys had always just played by themselves, alone in their rooms. And they were nervous with all this added attention, this media firestorm. And so they started playing, and they were both playing terribly. And it was all over the place. They were walking in, guys with the bases loaded. Their pitchers couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Their batters couldn't swing the bat. It was awful. It was like the worst they'd ever played. And they could tell there was a palpable disappointment in the room, especially from the Sony execs, because they were here for a show. I mean, the game is called The Show, and people expect a show. And these boys, they're playing so terribly that it's embarrassing for this giant company. And there were so many negative reactions online. They were live streaming this, and it was too much for these boys. And it got to the point in the fourth inning, it was only the fourth inning, where both of them looked at each other, and they were both miserable. And they both looked at each other, and they nodded their heads, and they stood up, and they walked through the crowd of their friends. They walked past the camera crew. They walked past the very stern Sony execs, the stiff suits in the room, and they walked out the front door, and Daniel grabbed 2 baseball gloves and a baseball out of his garage, and they had a catch, and the 2 boys never looked back again. The end.
This is the story of Roro, the amazing puppy. Once upon a time, there was a litter of puppies. It was the largest pack anyone had ever seen of puppies. They were all Ridgeback puppies. There were 20 of them, and they were all wanting attention from their mother. And there was one runt of the pack. He was the last one born, the smallest born, and oftentimes he did not get the food that he needed. He did not get the attention from his mother or the attention from the owners because he was always lagging behind. And everyone thought, oh, poor Roro. He will be what he will be. But Roro had an indomitable spirit. Roro knew that he was destined for amazing things. Usually Ridgebacks, they're supposed to have this perfect ridge on their back, their show ridge. They're supposed to have these exotic features, but Roro was actually ridgeless. So when it was time for people to get the puppies, everyone overlooked Roro because everyone wanted the best looking show ridges that they could put in the annual show. So eventually all Roro's brothers and sisters left, and Roro was left there by himself with his mother. His mother was a world-class ridgeback, champion, multi-time, multi-generation champion. And she said, Roro, honey, you know what? These judges, they've been judging off the same criteria for years. You be you, Roro. And Roro said, okay, I'm going to be the #1 ridgeback dog in the world. So Roro knew that in order to do that, he'd have to really find a lot of confidence, but also he'd have to learn all the commands. He'd have to groom himself because he didn't have a normal handler to teach him everything. And his mom was like, look, I only speak dog, okay? I don't speak English. I don't speak human. You're going to need to find yourself an owner. So Roro realized that he needed a groomer or a handler or an owner, aka a best friend. So Roro decided to set out to find this person. Roro packed up his bag, which was a little bit of food, a couple of his favorite beef treats, his favorite toy, a little squeaky ball, and then also a clicker, because he knew that's how he was going to find the owner, whoever knew how to use the clicker to teach him how to be a championship dog. Roro left in the middle of the night, said goodbye to his mom, and set out on the road. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't speak any human. He only spoke dog. On the way, he met a couple of stray dogs, and they said, oh, you're looking for an owner? So are we. And he said, well, maybe we can go find an owner together. And they said, we've been out here on the road, wanderless for a long time, ownerless for a long time, lost hope. And Roro said, don't lose hope. You're amazing. Everything that you bring, you're unique. Everything that you bring into this world, it's awesome. And just because other people don't see it, someone's going to see it. And these dogs said, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I haven't seen myself like that in a long time. Maybe I can go find someone. And so they all got together and they went out searching for Roro's owner, but also their own new owners. And on the way, they met some other dogs, some other stray cats. They met some birds. They met all sorts of lizards and insects and creepy crawlies. And next thing you know, Roro was leading this amazing group of multi-species animals on the 5 heading down from San Bernardino all the way to Los Angeles, city of dreams. Eventually there was the people who catch stray animals. Can't think of their names right now, but they're called the animal catchers. They drove on the road and they heard about these wild animals headed for Los Angeles. And they said, we can't have all these strays in Los Angeles. It's not good for the community. And so they set out to catch Roro and his group. Roro and them were alerted that there was this van looking for them. But then they said, hey, we're going to help you find homes. But Roro and them, they said, we can find our own homes on our own because we believe in ourselves. When the animal catchers heard, even though they didn't speak human or they didn't speak animal or dog, when they could tell that Roro was they could sense his conviction and they saw all the other animals, all they wanted to do was get to a place to find a home and find people who loved them and people who would teach them. The animal catcher said, okay, we'll help you. So then they actually gave them a ride into the city. And on the way, they started helping on social media to put out ads to say, hey, there's this ridgeback, this ridgeless ridgeback, and there's this cat, and there are these other dogs, and there are these other animals right here who need loving homes, or there are people out there who want to take these animals in. And they started getting responses. At first, there was a few, and next thing you know, they were flooded because everyone heard about this amazing puppy that set out from San Bernardino all the way down to Los Angeles and brought along his friends. But this one particular person who ran the dog show heard about this puppy and heard that this puppy was trying to enter the dog show. And Roro was getting all this social media attention. And everyone was, he had millions of followers now. People were donating money to his fund to enter the championship. And this older person did not want Roro to change the ways of the dog championship. But Roro eventually found a little girl who bonded with him. Her name was Sally. And Sally was the granddaughter of this lady. and her name was Miss Marjorie. Miss Marjorie, the tournament lady, and Sally was her granddaughter. And Sally brought Roro to her grandmother, Miss Marjorie. And Miss Marjorie was like, what? That thing. I've heard everybody talk about that thing on social media. That's not a Ridgeback. That's a ridgeless dog that wants to be a Ridgeback. And Sally said, wait, but look at how quickly it learns. He learns. Roro. It's not an it, it's a he. And Sally showed her mom or her grandmother how Roro could sit. And she clicked the button and Roro sat. And she said, I didn't even teach him this. And then she says, Roro, jump. And Roro jumped. And she said, Roro, play dead. And Roro rolled over and played dead. And she said, Roro, go get the paper. And Roro ran out and grabbed the paper. And Miss Marjorie was amazed. How did this Ridgeback learn so much without being taught? And Sally said, because of all its friends. It learned from the world. He learned from the world. He's experienced the world. He's been out there and he met all these people, all these different types of animals, and all these animals taught him something because he realized he could learn something from everything and everyone. And he didn't just want to learn from one human or other Ridgebacks. He wanted to learn from them all. And Miss Marjorie had never thought of such a thing. And she had never thought that there were so many wide perspectives out there that this dog could learn. And so then she opened up the dog show to all sorts of dogs. She wasn't just a Ridgeback enthusiast. She was like an animal enthusiast, a humanist. And they let Roro enter the championship. And of course, Roro was the most amazing puppy and won everything. And one day, Roro went back and met the rest of his brothers and sisters and told them that story. And they all said, hey, we knew you had it in you. That's why we ate all the food and everything, because we knew you were going to be all right, Roro. You were going to be all right. And Roro, the amazing puppy, was.
Once upon a time, there was a middle-aged guy named Dan. Dan always fancied himself as being pretty handy around the house. There was a lot he could do. He could do all the simple things. He could change light bulbs. He could fix broken doorknobs. You know, he had some minor skills in woodworking, and he stayed away from electrician type stuff. He didn't want to get electrocuted, and his wife always knew there were certain boundaries to what he could do, and so she was always very, very helpful in reminding him of what he was capable of, even though he was a very capable guy. One day, Dan clogged his toilet, and he had some stomach discomfort, and he had clogged his toilet. So he did what any middle-aged man named Dan would do, and he plunged it, and it went down, and he felt like he had solved that problem. But in the middle of the night, he started hearing this gurgling coming from the toilet. And it was a very, very strange gurgling, one that he hadn't heard before. And he checked. Everything was clear. So he decided that the toilet, they had this toilet since they had moved into the house. He decided that he was going to replace the toilet. It was one of those old toilets, used a ton of water. He knew that there were some great toilets on the market, the ones with the dual flushing system for number 1 and number 2. And he was a conscientious guy. I mean, he was a composter. He had a compost bin, and he was very, very proud of his compost bin. So his heart was in the right place. And he was a thrifty guy. So he decided he was going to replace the toilet himself. So he watched some YouTube videos, and the next day he managed to pull the old toilet off. And I don't know if you know this, but when you do, there's just basically a hole in the ground. I mean, it's a pipe, right? And he saw the most curious thing in that hole.
So inside of this hole was what could only be described as really a giant mouth. And this took Dan by surprise, like it would anyone who removed a toilet and found out that the hole where the toilet sat was just this giant creature's mouth. And Dan freaked out a little bit, as anyone would, because it's a lot to it's a shock to the system to suddenly discover that your house has been sitting over top of some creature's mouth. And it's also it's a little weird to think, oh, the place where I used the bathroom, that's a creature's that's a hole where a creature's mouth is, and that's kind of funky. So the creature immediately tries to get Dan to calm down and tells him, it's fine, don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not here to eat you, I am just the mouth that lives under the house, and don't worry about any sort of grossness that you might feel is associated with where this toilet that sat above me was, because it's not gross to me. Whereas you and your family, you do your business and then you flush the toilet and you walk away. Well, that's kind of what I've been living off of for a very long time. I guess you really could describe me as the toilet monster, even though I'm not really scary. I'm not really here to hurt anyone. I have to eat like any other creature does. And what I choose to eat, what I need to eat, actually, not choose to eat, what I need to eat is is what you put down the toilet, my friend. So with that being said, I know I can see you're replacing this toilet here, and I'm starting to get a little hungry, but are you sure you know what you're doing there, Dan? And Dan takes all this in and, is trying to process it. This is a lot to deal with. So Dan, he knows he has to get this cheap toilet that he bought, to replace the cruddy toilet back over this hole. But, he's also freaking out a little bit, and he says to the creature, well, before I fix this toilet up, before I put everything back in place, let me go tell my wife what's going on. I think she needs to know. And the creature says, no, you can't do that. This has to be our secret. This is where I have lived for many a moon. You didn't know I was here before, and that didn't bother you. So, don't let it bother you now. Just put the toilet, in place, and, let's just keep things cool and kosher between us, and you keep doing your business and I'll keep doing mine. How does that sound, Dan the man? Well, Dan had to think about this and then figure out what his next move was.
And Dan was in a bit of a quandary because he shared everything with his wife. They had a very open, trusting relationship, but he thought that this just might be too weird to share, and he was having a crisis of conscience, if you will, because on the one hand, he's always shared everything with her, but on the other hand, there was this mouth living under the toilet, and he was worried that if he told her about the mouth, that she might think that he, was kind of losing it. He had been stressed out at work, and he just felt like this might be something to keep from her. So he did, and he replaced the toilet immediately, and as he was putting the toilet over the hole and sealing it, the mouth gave him a mouth thumbs up, however that works, because it was a mouth that didn't have thumbs, but you can just use your imagination. It was maybe a nod of approval. It was a, hey, what's up, man? Thanks for being a good homeowner and giving me a new toilet, because he was appreciative of that. And so Dan just kind of kept it between him and the mouth for a while, until one day his wife was on the toilet, and Dan hadn't apparently done a very good job of sealing it. And you have a wax ring that you have to put on, and it has to really get on there to seal everything out. Well, he had kind of done a subpar job of sealing it, and she leaned over to grab the toilet paper, and the toilet tipped over. There was water everywhere, and she stood up, and there was the mouth, just like staring at her. And she was like, she freaked out. She didn't know what to do. So she screamed, and Dan came rushing in, and she looked at him. He looked at her. There's water all over the floor. There's broken porcelain. And they both looked down at the mouth. And he looked at her again and he said, Oh, that's okay, honey. That's just the mouth that lives under our toilet. We have a symbiotic relationship. He's not gonna hurt you. And the mouth said, yeah, lady, it's totally cool. Dan and I go way back, but if you can just put a new toilet on so we can keep this thing running, because this is our relationship, this is how it works, that would be awesome. I'm sorry I spooked you, but yeah, if we can just get back to normal, that'd be great. So she was just not processing this. She just left the room to try and calm down. She drank some water. And Dan put the toilet back on. Well, he got a new toilet. He had to, because this one was shattered. So Dan went out, he got a new toilet. He gave the mouth a thumbs up. And as he was doing that, she was standing in the doorway. She gave the mouth a thumbs up. She had finally kind of come to her senses and realized that this was sort of normal. And they went on with their days. And this time, Dan put a great seal on it. And occasionally when he was doing, work under the house, when he had to go under the crawl space, he'd see the mouth, he'd give him a thumbs up, the mouth would give him a thumbs up. He was like their little pet, and they had an awesome relationship with the mouth under the house. The end.
Once upon a time, there was a brother and a sister. They lived in a small town. And small towns don't get a lot of action. There's not a lot that's going on. They're pretty quiet. In order to see the things that you hear about, that you see on the internet or that you read about in a book, usually you have to venture from your small town and go to the big city. So this brother and sister, we'll name them Derek and Deanna. Derek and Deanna. Derek and Deanna would spend their quiet days in this small town when they weren't in school or playing baseball or skateboarding at the park. Deanna was just an awesome skateboarder. When they weren't spending their days doing the quiet small town stuff that they loved, they would drink up all that they could on the internet. One day they saw that there was a circus that was coming to their town. Not even just the big city nearby. Not the big city. It was coming to their little town. The circus was coming to town. So Derek and Deanna could not have been more excited about this. It's probably the greatest thing that had ever happened to their sleepy hamlet. And of course, they asked their two moms if they could go to see the circus. And the two moms said, of course, let's go see the circus. Why would we say no to that? It's going to be the greatest day/night of our lives. So the circus comes to town, and Derek and Deanna are probably, I think the family was like the first family in line to get in. They just wanted to be there and drink it all up and spend as much time as possible, just soaking it all in, because, they didn't know if they'd ever get the chance to experience this again. It's, the circus doesn't come to town very often, and it never came to their town. So the kids are, running around, and they're just soaking up everything that they can. They're checking out the lion tamer, and, then they see a lion in person for the very first time, and that's blowing their minds. And then, of course, there's the bearded lady, like the circus freaks, that, that part of the circus. And there's the strong man and, all that cool stuff that comes with, the circus. But then it was time for them to take their seats and for the show to begin. This is the most exciting moment of their lives, and they just barely could contain themselves. So, they take their seats with their two moms, and they were so excited because there's never been anything like this in their lives. This was going to be the greatest thing ever. The lights go down and the show begins, and out of the back area, where all the circus performers are hanging out and waiting to come on to the quote unquote stage, are all these clowns. And they just come out on little tricycles, and a clown car comes out, and this thing is smaller than a Toyota Prius, and it seems like 50 clowns are just pouring out of this thing until the very end. Then there's just this one giant clown who cannot get out of the car. He is stuck, and this clown's name is Jumbo the clown. And Jumbo, he could be considered sort of a circus freak because nobody's ever seen a clown of this size. This clown was so big. And one has to step back and wonder, why was Jumbo the clown inside the tiny clown car trying to do this bit with all the other clowns? Well, Jumbo just wanted to be like all the other clowns, right? He wanted to do clown things. He just wanted to wear the makeup and have a squirty rose and have oversized shoes. Just, be a regular clown. Just despite the fact that this guy, Jumbo, is probably like 10 feet tall and 500 pounds. He was a giant, but he insisted on being part of the clown car act because he wanted to do what all the other clowns did. So here is Jumbo, and he is like literally it's like a head and a foot have to come out of the car as he's the last to get out of this clown car. And all the other clowns are standing there, rolling their eyes, just shaking their heads. They're admonishing him. We tried to tell you, Jumbo, not to do the clown car thing. We told you there wasn't room in the clown car for you. One of the clowns even takes his squirting rose and squirts it in Jumbo's face, as just kind of like an exclamation point on top of this finger wagging that they're doing about why Jumbo just had to be inside the clown car with all the other clowns. While these clowns are upset with their friend, and the master of ceremonies is nearby, and he's just shaking his head with disgust, and the audience is murmuring and getting louder and wondering, what the heck is going on here? What's this? Is this the circus? What is this? What we paid our good money for? And we're so excited to see. While this is all happening, Derek and Deanna decide they're not going to just sit here and watch Jumbo struggle. They jump out of their seats and they go down, and they actually give Jumbo their hands, and they help pull this big old clown out of this tiny clown car. And it was with Derek and Deanna's help that Jumbo finally emerges, and he stands up and he stretches out and he reveals himself in all of his Jumbo glory. He gets a little stage fright and he's looking around because everyone's looking at him and the spotlight's on him. But then he feels on each side of him these two tiny hands grabbing basically a pinky and a thumb, because that's how big his hands were. And he looks down and there's Derek and Deanna, and they're saying, "Don't be nervous. You're the star of the show. Just go do your clown stuff and make everybody laugh, and everybody's going to be so happy because the show can go on." And that's all Jumbo needed to hear to get his confidence back and puff up his chest and go grab a pie and smash it right into the face of the clown that squirted the rose and the squirty rose into his face. And the clown that did that, clown that took the pie to the face, actually laughed, because now they're back to doing clown things. And the master of ceremonies is finally breathing a sigh of relief, and he's got a smile on his face because now the circus can continue. And Derek and Deanna and their two moms were ushered down from their okay seats to the VIP section of the circus, and they got to watch the rest of the show in this VIP section, which is just right on the floor. And they got to be part of the show themselves. And it ended up being just as Derek and Deanna wanted it to be, the greatest night of their lives. And before the circus left town, Jumbo gave them his email address, and he told them to stay in touch. And Derek and Deanna did that, and they have been friends ever since. And Jumbo was such an inspiration to them both that Derek decided to apply to Clown College, and he got a scholarship, and he'll be going there in the fall of 2027. The end.